call this meeting of the Stratford Board of Education to order at 7:15. Today is Monday, November 28th. My name is Andrea Corcoran, Board Chair. We do have a forum. Thank you everybody for coming. And Mrs. Wiltie, will you please lead us in the invocation and pledge?
Sure will. Everyone please stand. We beseech you, Almighty God, to bless this meeting of the Board of Education, so guide and rule over our hearts and our minds that all our deliberations and decisions may be in accordance with your will and lead to the advancement and welfare of the community of Stratford for whom we serve. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please be seated.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson. And we will begin this evening with our student representative reports. And first up from Stratford High School, Tiana.
Good evening. On behalf of Stratford High School, I sincerely hope that you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving and spent some quality time with your family, friends, and loved ones. A lot has been going on at SHS since the last board meeting. On October 28th, we held our first pep rally in 3 years to celebrate our fall student athletes and homecoming for the Red Devils football team. It was a truly special event to see 1,145 students in the gyms for a full school activity. Later that night at the halftime show, we honored our homecoming court. They were freshmen Josh Tribby and Madison Vasquez, sophomores Kyle August and Willow Tinajero, juniors Daniel Brennan and Natalie Rivera, and seniors Amos Colocho and Aiden McCrae. On Monday, November 7th, we held a parent program with parents from all 4 secondary schools. Through the use of the Title I funds, we were able to bring Jeff Yeldon to Stratford. Jeff spoke with parents about teen mental health and the importance of normalizing the conversations at school and at home. It was a lively and engaging conversation that was beneficial for all. Our goal is to help bridge the gap between school and home and increase student success. Later that night, our junior class held their junior ring dance at Vizano's Four Seasons. Over 250 juniors and their guests had an amazing dinner and danced the night away. Well, until 9:30 anyways. Most importantly, they had a wonderful time. On Thursday, November 10th, both SHS and BHS held their parent conferences. 650 individual conferences were held as parents were able to meet with their children's teachers to discuss the beginning of the school year and their progress so far. Our school counselors have been working to ensure all early action college applications were completed by the November 15th deadline. They continue to help students fill out common applications and write letters of recommendations. I reported last month about the FAFSA challenge, and this Saturday, Stratford and Bunnell High School are hosting their first ever FAFSA completion event at SHS. Parents from both Stratford and Bunnell are welcome to attend. Additionally, on December 6th, 50 students from SHS will be traveling to the University of Connecticut for a campus tour and to learn more about all that UConn has to offer. On Tuesday, November 15th, SHS held their 4th annual Faculty versus Seniors flag football game to benefit the Todd Stolt Memorial Scholarship. While the faculty remained undefeated, the true measure of is the community coming together to remember and celebrate the legacy of Mr. Stoltz, who was a longtime teacher and coach at SHS. Congratulations to our senior girls for their win in the annual BHS versus SHS Powder Puff flag football game. SHS senior Ashley Cortez was named the MVP as she led her team to victory. November 17th, 18th, and 19th marked our fall play. Cast and crew put on 4 performances of Blythe Spirit. This was an extremely challenging performance because of the amount of dialogue that they needed to master. It was a truly amazing performance. I would like to thank everyone who came to support our Drama Society and to give a special shout out to Mrs. Murphy and Mr. Lynon for organizing this. We will have more information coming on our spring musical soon. Stay tuned. November 21st and 22nd marked our SHS Club and Activity Fair. This was planned by the students who make up our Inspire Ed Focus group. Being a part of this group, I can say that we did an amazing job. We were able to have our clubs and activities talk with each other, with each student at SHS, about the importance of being involved in our school community. After the successful event, we are now focused on our SHS Community Cultural Awareness Celebration. I will continue to keep you updated on this, as we would love to have you join us at this event. SHS held their second pep rally of the year on November 23rd, as the Red Devils prepared for their annual Thanksgiving Day football game against the Bunnell Bulldogs. During that time, we announced the Fall Individual Sports Awards. SHS is proud to announce the following student athletes. Honorable mention, all SWC, Amelia Kuban for soccer, Chloe Atkins for soccer, and Maura Conlon for volleyball. All Colonial Division, Grace Petrie for soccer, Gianna Delora for volleyball. All SWC, Amos Colocho for cross country, Gabe Piva for soccer, Estella Finstra for volleyball. First team All-State, Estella Finstra for volleyball. Tomorrow, Ali Gross and Michelle Phillips from the Barr Foundation will be visiting Stratford and Bunnell High School for classroom visitations and to observe our PLCs in action. The Barr Foundation has funded our Portrait of a Graduate work and also works with their member schools on the indicators of school quality. This will be Ali and Michelle's first visit to our high schools. Once again, I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Tiana. Next, Tara from Bunnell.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tara Tian, and it is a pleasure to be addressing you this evening. Congratulations are in order to Mr. Spatrino in our AP Computer Science program. Earlier this month, Mr. Spatrino was awarded $1,000 on behalf of the Expanding Computing Education Pathways Alliance nonprofit organization. Bunnell is one of only 8 high schools in the state to offer computer science courses to an above-average number of underrepresented minority students based on public data from the state. Thank you, Mr. Spatrino, for your excellence in building our AP Computer Science program. After 2 long years, we were thrilled to host our 4th Veterans Day celebration, honoring over 80 veterans and community dignitaries. Mr. Newmeyer and his culinary students served a fine dining menu consisting of Caesar salad, braised short ribs over buttercup squash polenta, chocolate cappuccino mousse, and cookie trays. The ceremony was inspirational, thoughtful, and heartfelt, and our students honored these men and women with the respect they deserve. While many members of our staff contributed to the success of this event, social study teachers, Mr. David Jockel and Mike Puro, were engaging and spirited MCs. Under the leadership of CTE teacher Mrs. Garcia, students from Inspire Ed organized and facilitated the 2nd annual Cultural Showcase on November 23rd. The Culture Showcase is a talent fashion show where students and staff have the opportunity to share their talents and parts of their culture with the entire school community. From Irish step dancing to Jamaican poetry to a presentation of quinceañera dresses, a wide range of Bunnell's beautiful diversity was represented during the showcase. The Culture Showcase was highlighted by a walk of countries. Over 25 different flags and cultures were represented, and our superintendent, Dr. Osunday, walked out with a group of students who represented their Nigerian culture. The Culture Showcase was extremely well received by our students and staff, and plans are already in the works to open it up to the greater Stratford community next year. Mr. Ramos and members of the Men of Color were asked to be guest speakers at the Connecticut Association of Schools CIAC Student Equity Advisory Board meeting on November 16th. They explained how the Men of Color was founded and the goals of the club to a group of over 50 students across the state. The Connecticut Association of Schools, CIAC, are looking to replicate the MOC Club at other schools across Connecticut. The Men of Color will be honored for its work in the community by the Greater Bridgeport chapter of the NAACP on December 11th. Band director Jim Miller was recognized at a statewide ceremony held at the Bushnell in Hartford, Connecticut on Wednesday, November 16th as Stratford Public Schools District Teacher of the Year. The cast and crew are very excited to present Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. The performances take place December 8th and 9th at 7 and December 10th at 2 p.m. This is Bunnell's first show in over 2 years, so please come support these students. Tickets are $7 for everyone. We will be selling tickets mainly online, but we will be selling tickets at the door with card and cash. We will be sharing soon what our spring musical will be. Ms. Callahan and Mitchell Weinbaum are very excited and know students will love it. Select choir students will be singing for the first time at Town Hall for the town tree lighting. Please come out December 1st and have a sneak peek of the winter concert. Concert choir and select choir will be performing at the Radio City Christmas Spectacular December 2nd at 10 p.m. We are excited to have our students perform and to have the spectacular performance opportunity. The Music Winter Concert will be held on December 20th at 7 p.m. featuring band, choir, and orchestra performing. Please support these students in their first formal concert in the auditorium in years. BHS counselors are organizing a campus visit to UConn on December 2nd for eligible juniors. On December 14th, Guidance will be hosting an on-site admissions day for Connecticut State Community Colleges. December 3rd and 7th, students will have the opportunity to receive help on their FAFSA and will be participating in the CT State FAFSA Challenge. Students interested in taking the ASVAB Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery exam will be able to on December 5th. Our counselors continue to meet with seniors individually to support them with their post-high school plans. We are very excited to announce that we are bringing the 21st Century After School students to NYC to see the award-winning Hamilton on Broadway this Wednesday. Hamilton celebrates history, diversity, and its text and lyrics bring a relevance to the story in a way that engages the student, that engages the entire audience. We are thankful for this opportunity and pleased to honor this enriching experience free of charge to our program participants. Stratford Public Schools' first ever student-run podcast, Bulldog Underground, continues to connect the Bunnell and Stratford communities by bringing important guests into the studios to share their stories and answer questions posed by our student hosts. Recently, the students were thrilled to speak with Mayor Laura Hoydick, Vietnam veteran and lifelong Stratford resident Bill O'Brien, and this just past Friday, Bunnell head coach Taiwan Jenkins. The students also patronized a local business, Or in Oak, and featured them in an episode. The athletic department recognizes Rohan Taro football and Summer Williams cheer as the December athletes of the month. On December 6th, Bunnell Winter Sports captains will be attending the SWC Captains Council meeting at Bethel High School. This will be an opportunity for our winter captains to meet with student leaders from other schools within our league to discuss sportsmanship, leadership, in the Class Act initiative. Maya Soto, girls soccer, and Diala Kowan, boys soccer, received all SWC first team honors this fall. In science, students have wrapped up learning lab techniques such as micropipetting and DNA sequencing in their biotechnology class. After researching the different parts of the brain, students are preparing to dissect sheep brains in their neuroscience class. Bunnell physics teacher Ms. Breckard co-leads the National Network of State Teachers of the Year Voya STEM Fellowship, which Mrs. Kahn, Bunnell's science department head, is a fellow of. Through the fellowship, Mrs. Khan and Ms. Record co-authored the High School STEM Career Engagement Guide, which was featured in the November 9th Education Week issue titled How Bringing STEM Experts into the Classroom Can Help Engage Students. Students at Bunnell continue to engage in challenging new pursuits and courses ranging from foundational algebra skills through advanced placement coursework in calculus and statistics. BHS math faculty has worked to develop new curriculum and student-facing instructional strategies to support all learners. Over 30 Bunnell students participated in the 29th Annual American Mathematics Competition on November 16th, competing on a national level against students from schools across America. The Bunnell Student Government Association hosted a blood drive on November 17th. 40 people, including students, staff, parents, and Bunnell community members signed up to donate. The Red Cross said this was the largest blood drive that a school has hosted this year. Thank you for your time and have a nice rest of your evening.
Thank you, Tara. Ladies, thank you so much for keeping us up to date always. It sounds like there's a lot of awesome stuff happening. And you guys can absolutely feel free to take off. We will move on to our presentations. I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Sunday.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. It is my distinct honor to call up a few of our professional teachers. Stratford Public Schools is the 15th largest school district in the state of Connecticut. And ultimately, every year we're only allowed to select one Teacher of the Year, but the group of teachers I will name in a few moments here are worthy of that distinction as well. They have found a way through the academic year to distinguish themselves by way of the quality of instruction they provide to students, the support they provide to students, the way they work with families, the way they've collaborated with colleagues. I'm going to read off 4 names, and I would ask that they come up for a quick photo op. I would also ask our members of the selection committee to maybe pop up here as well for the photo op, and also invite SEA President Mike Fiorello, executives Kristen Rickett, and I don't see Robin here, but perhaps she can pop up here and join for a photo op. Again, a distinguished group of educators from Franklin Elementary School, Ms. Randy Willett. From Nichols Elementary School, Mrs. Jessica Sickles. From Johnson House Elementary School, Stratford Academy, Ms. Jillian Grabowski. And from Lordship Elementary School, Ms. Kathleen D'Amico.
You get to be in the center. I know.
Oh, thanks.
I'm just on here. Where's Dr. Sunday? He's coming.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Again, it's no easy feat to be recognized by your peers in the district with almost 600 certified teachers. These individuals have found a way to distinguish themselves. So thank you so much for all you do for our kids and all you do with our colleagues.
Thank you. And we have a second presentation this evening. I will hand it off once again to Dr. Sunday.
We do. Mr. Rivers, if you can assist in prepping the presentation. So it's my distinct honor to call up a few of my colleagues who will walk us through our presentation. Over the last year and a half, as the board, we've talked significantly about the impact on student decision-making and how that impacts culture and climate. We made a commitment to improve along the way. We've taken a few strategic actions in response to that. I think if you take a look at this academic year and, if we're able to put our thumbs on some of the staffing shortage issues, I would say that Stratford Public Schools is having a pretty quality year. There's certainly more to do. Part of this work is looking at our climate and culture and looking at some of the statistics and some of the data points of the decision-making of our students. So at this time, it's my honor to call up to present and speak to our disciplinary data, Ms. Heather Borges and Dr. Fallon Daniels.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Dr. Daniels, and this is Ms. Borges, and we are going to co-present some data today in regards to our discipline numbers. First, I want to provide you with the context for the presentation, which allows you to understand how we collect data regularly at Stratford Public Schools. So we have internal data systems in which we are looking at suspension numbers by students and number of times that students are suspended. We are looking at the demographics or subgroups in which students are being suspended. We're also looking at our arrest numbers, and we are also looking at practices across our schools and across the district in regards to supporting our students with stronger decision making. What I will share tonight to give us a context of where we are as a district with our disciplinary numbers, I went and grabbed information specifically from Connecticut's performance profile, which is published publicly every year, annually. And the reason that I did this was so it can give us a context of how we're performing against other comparable districts as we have this conversation. So to get us started, I'm going to just do a quick overview here. So again, as I mentioned, our disciplinary numbers give us an overview of where we can support student decision-making to keep them academically engaged, but it also allows us to glimpse into our practices as educators. And what we will do today is present a comprehensive data analysis of our disciplinary data and our strategic response to the needs of our students. And it's important that we provide you with a couple of things. 3 years of consistent data, trends. You can observe the strengths and weaknesses or areas of growth. And so we will provide that with our pre-pandemic trends in the disciplinary numbers. And then we will provide you with a current context of where we are and some action steps that we are taking currently this year. There are 2 points of reference that we are going to be making this evening, and that is the suspension rates and the arrest numbers. To provide you with an understanding of what that means, our suspension rates are the percentage of students with at least 1 suspension. Okay, so I want to make that very clear. Or an expulsion. So it's not how many times a student's been suspended or how many suspensions we've issued. It's each unique student that has been assigned a suspension or an expulsion. And then our arrest numbers, according to the state, it is defined as any count of school-based arrest within the district, all right, and that is on school property or at a school-sponsored event. Okay.
Okay, so you guys, this is the history. You're looking from 2016 until 2020 when the pandemic happened, okay? And as you're looking at this, you're comparing Stratford's numbers, which are in blue, to Connecticut's numbers. And remember, she said these are percentages. So this is the percentage of students who had an expulsion or a suspension in each of these years. You can see in 2017 and 2018, there is a little bit of a spike in our disciplinary actions. When you dig deep in that data, what you'll find are those are the years where we had an increase in student vaping at the secondary level, which caused an increase in disciplinary actions. Okay, another spike could have come because we also changed our approach to how we worked with students, changed during the 2017 to 2020 years as we went into restorative practices. When the schools first initially became trained in restorative practices, the trainers said you may see a spike because students are going to press and challenge those new practices of how we're approaching things, and then you should see a decline. In 2019 and 2020, that's the pandemic year, so the numbers are lower because we ended school sooner. Okay, so know that when you're looking at that set of numbers. Can you go to the next? The next slide isn't a percentage. These are the actual number of arrests. Remember, she defined arrests as what happens in school or out of school function. Okay, again, you're going to see this spike. And when we dig deeper into the reasons for the arrests, those were arrest tickets mostly issued due to the use of vaping at our secondary schools. That was the year where the police department decided they were going to make sure they ticketed for vaping. The following year, they took a different approach, which is why you see a decrease for the vaping, okay? So those are the specific arrests within our public schools over the course, and you can see in 1920, that's the pandemic year, okay? Now remember, these are not in town, these are at school events or in our school buildings. And that's the exact number. So you have 16, 47, 33, and 36.
With these numbers in mind, I just wanted to announce that if we revisit comparable districts, as I mentioned earlier, we are well below in our suspension rates and arrest numbers. So I wanted to name that we are not out of proportion, but we do recognize, right, that there's an opportunity for us to continue strengthening the work to support our students with their decision making and also supporting our school climate and overall safety. There was a moment in time that some will argue we're still in which we had experienced the pandemic. And with the pandemic, I just highlighted a couple of things for us to keep in mind. Our national educational landscape during the pandemic shifted, right? So what we've observed is the deepen the impact of disparities in access and opportunities. Nearly all students have experienced some challenges to their mental health and well-being. And there's been a heightened risk of sexual harassment, abuse, and violence. And so this is typical, what we've seen is typical observations. This was provided by the U.S. Department Office of Civil Rights, where our American students have faced these three specific incidences or have been impacted in these different ways. And Stratford also has students who have experienced this as well. And so we had to be very specific and strategic in our response, which Ms. Borges, you will come up with.
So you guys asked for the discipline numbers, and those are super important, and we're glad we're able to provide you with those. But what's more important than those numbers is what we are doing. What are we currently doing in Stratford to decrease the number of incidences? What are we doing to support our students with their mental health and with their behavioral choices within our buildings, okay? This is what we are currently doing. We are focusing on our partnerships, our infrastructure, and our grants that are coming together to support our students. So we're gonna start with the partnerships. We're continuing with Ruler. We're in year 3 of Ruler. I know some of you attended your Ruler sessions at your schools because we are working with our communities to help our community understand what Ruler is doing for our students' social and emotional well-being and help provide some tools for them to be able to take home, okay? That isn't gonna end. We've enhanced the opportunities for family partnerships because we've opened our buildings again. We have some in-person options, we have some virtual options, but we're continuing to get back to where we were with those partnerships with our parents, as well as expanding because the virtual options came out of the pandemic and we've continued some of those. We're increasing our mental health resources by adding another mental health clinic or another health clinic at Johnson. We're hoping to continue to do that in future years. And one of the biggest impacts we're having right now is we have really strengthened our partnership with the Stratford PD. Just so you guys are aware, our partnership with the Stratford PD now has the PAL program, which has taught students internet safety. It continues with the Community Garden Project. We have started a police engagement program at the secondary level, which has casual conversations with a cop and life after high school. The PAL is coming in, working with our high school students, talking with them, making those connections and supporting them as they transition out of high school. For the middle school, we have middle school clubs called public safety clubs that work with our PAL. And then at the elementary school, they are trying, but they are short-staffed and unable to do it as much as they want to, but they are trying to reinstate a cop in front of every kid at the elementary schools. So they are working on that, but they have acknowledged that their staffing issues have made it difficult for them to do that one in fall. So knowing that we're continuing with that partnership is really important because that leads us into where these grant funds are coming from. Okay, as you guys know, we got approved for the Project Uplift grant. Okay, that is a grant where we are partnering with the JRB to work specifically with the secondary schools to provide targeted and really needed efforts in order for us to work with our students that have been arrested. Those charts that you have seen, the suspensions, the expulsions, this group is going to be really working with those students to help make sure we don't have reoccurring events. We don't have students that are repeating those same offenses. The infrastructure, I skipped over that, sorry. So the infrastructure, just to keep you guys updated, you had asked, we hired 11 out of the 17 climate specialists. I've been in the schools. I am watching those climate specialists already building relationships with the students that are in our buildings. They are already having an impact, and a chunk of those climate specialists have already gone through the mindset training, which is the de-escalation training that we're hoping will also lower our numbers of suspensions and expulsions and arrests, because they will have the tools to de-escalate a student before it gets to that level. Okay, so those are in place. We have expanded our student leadership groups. You guys actually heard these ladies who just spoke speak about Inspire Ed. There are 4 Inspire Ed groups now. There's a total of 7 new leadership groups. The more our students are involved in those leadership groups and those inclusion groups, the better decisions they're going to make. Okay, we've expanded 7 of those this year, and we've added our director of safety, which has really helped already make a positive impact in our schools, how we approach safety, how we feel, and what we're doing within our communities. Now I'm going to jump back down to grants. So I talked to you a little bit about the Project Uplift grant, and I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Daniels to talk a little bit about Alliance money.
Yeah, in short, the Alliance grant has allowed us to really position ourselves to think deeply around data. And so we've been having ongoing sessions where myself, and Dr. Sunday, Dr. Gata have joined in, where we're asking our leaders to think deeply about how do we deliver instruction and what are our instructional goals and how do we support our climate so that our students are fully engaged within their spaces. And so the Alliance grants allow us the opportunity to focus on intentional and purposeful planning and going deeper into the data to support the development of our school improvement process, and then also to enhance our MTSS systems. So we're able to go back and continue to improve and build upon the MTSS system. So with all of these resources in place, the strategic response that we've put together, we've been able to acquire the following results for this year thus far. Oops, skipping me. So this is our current report on disciplinary data. In the 18-19 school year pre-pandemic, we had a suspension rate of 8.1. This year it's a little bit higher. It's 8.7, last year, 21-22 is a little bit higher. And this makes sense because of what we just heard about the research and the trends nationally that was released by the U.S. Department Office of Civil Rights. We know that those numbers have gone up. The arrest numbers from the 18-19 pre-pandemic were at 33, but dropped significantly by 40% in the 21-22 school year post-pandemic. So we see those changes there. When we look at November last year and November this year, we see some small dips that have occurred. We see a dip in the suspension expulsion rate, and we see a dip in our arrest numbers. It is intended that we will continue to move forward with our data teaming, talking about strategies, continue with our student leadership groups and other responses that we've done thus far to improve the educational experiences for our students and what will support them and their decision making, and also allowing the conditions for our educators to reflect on data and think about best ways and best practices for student engagement. So we leave you with this, which is our next steps. And it's an opportunity for all of us collectively to work towards the improvement of our educational setting. And so we want to continue the existing work that we've identified so far and continue some future work in the following areas. So again, continuing the use of the data analysis process to look at disciplinary numbers and looking at other data points that will inform how we are doing as a school and how are we supporting our students. We also want to continue the use of our school improvement plan to support schools and thinking about strategic action steps to foster student learning outcomes. And also thinking about how do we include all students within our learning setting. In addition, we want to continue our stakeholder communication on SPS communication on performance and outcomes there and other relevant updates. And then also our research resources and other opportunities for staff development. So as we've done with our grants already and other spaces, we would like to continue that work. We intend to continue that work because we're noticing that we are showing gains in areas as a result of that. And that's about it.
So do you guys have any questions?
Yes, before we move on to Mr. Castro, we'll give a few questions. You guys, I would just like to ask board members as we formulate our questions, please keep them broad. No questions about specific incidents or specific people. And so are there any questions? Mr. Henrik?
Yep, sure. So, most of the suspension arrest records are for some of maybe the more egregious incidents. What kind of disciplinary actions are we taking for, like those kids say, middle of the road, mischievous, disruptive kids who are in the classroom, making it a little more difficult for learning of those who actually want to be there?
Yeah, so Heather had already talked a little bit about the restorative practices across the school, so I'll allow her to talk a little bit about that because sometimes we do see those type of disruptions in our spaces, and it is very important that we understand what the behavior is actually communicating. And so, Heather, if you want to talk a little bit about the restorative piece, because that does talk about how to engage our students.
So Mike, I think it really depends on what the act is, right? And how egregious and disruptive it is, because there are layers that our principals have in place in order to support our learning in the classroom and in order to support our students. So part of the reason the climate specialists are there is because sometimes a kid just needs to go for a walk, right? So if you're at an elementary school, you're being a little bit disruptive, but you're not so much where you're going to get suspended, but you need a break, right? That's why those climate specialists can take you out, help you de-escalate, and return to the class to not be disruptive. If you're at a level where you truly are disrupting, you may need to be removed from the class for a little bit, and they have spaces. Dr. Graff, will you share the name of your space that you have?
Ours is called the Meta Moment Center.
And we have the Restorative Learning Center.
Okay, so those are places where students can maybe not go for a whole day, but maybe just for a little bit, or for the whole day if they need it, but that would be actual, that would count as a suspension, but it's a place in which children can work on what they need to work on in order to return to the class. And I think that that's really what everyone's trying to get better at, the tools for those intermediate ones so they don't end up with larger suspensions.
Is there levels of discipline that follow that so that the child or the kid or the young adult doesn't use that as just a tool to
Yes.
manipulate the staff?
Yeah, and there's logging. So part of the data we get is because we log all of the disciplinary infractions. So Dr. Graff and Mr. Delapiano can, I know, how can I forget your name? Mr. Delapiano can say, well, Mr. Henrik in such class has now been removed 4 different times so that, because it's all logged, so that they can work with you to make sure that you have the support you need to stay in class.
And I just want to add, with the MTSS process, they are looking at academics, they are discussing behavior, they're discussing attendance, because in those spaces where they have a deep dive into what practices do we need to implement to support those students with sustaining their learning in the classroom, so they're not pulled out as much and they're getting the resources that they need. So that's why that MTSS process is very significant.
Thank you.
No? All right. Anybody else? Well, okay. Ladies, thank you so much.
So, just to be clear, we are making progress, and as we analyze this data, I felt it was incredibly important that our presenters and in our conversations with our principals, you know, whenever our children make better, improved decisions, we must remind them, because that's how we reinforce that behavior, okay? Whenever they make improved decisions, we must remind them that that becomes the standard expectation as a learner in the classroom, as a student in the hallway, as a young person in the community. Our principals, our teachers have championed that work. I think a clear illustration of that was the cultural showcase. The energy that was in that space was transformative. And just hearing Tiana speak about 1,145 kids being in the gym, right? Pep rallies and assemblies of that such cannot happen unless the conditions are right. So our work is to find ways to reinforce the behavior expectation, and that's how we start to recalibrate culture, right? When culture is recalibrated in a way where things are stable, then our teachers are positioned to do their best work, right? So there's more work to do, but I think this is a step in the right direction. We're going to continue to stay in a refined improvement process and continue to ebb and flow as we need to. Our next presenter in this presentation supplements what you just saw around the student conduct piece. This talks a little bit more about the technical aspects of the infrastructure work that we do. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce Mr. Carlos Castro, who is our safety director for the district, who joined us at the start of the summer, and I'm convinced the man has not slept since he joined the district. So please put your hands together for Mr. Carlos Castro.
Good evening. I have slept a little bit lately. Just give you a little background. I went to the military early in my life. I served during the Gulf War, was stationed in Germany, and upon coming back from the military, I stayed with the Stratford National Guard. After a couple of employments in the area, I was hired by the Stratford Police Department, where I completed 25 years of service. I was a detective, patrol officer detective. Also did a hostage negotiator trained by the FBI. I also became a sergeant as a supervisor when I retired. My last shift, I worked evenings, and I stayed retired for approximately 17 months, which was long enough. I applied, and when I met Dr. Sunday, he shared his vision of what he wants for the school system, what he's looking forward to accomplish. The main idea is for the safety of all the children and the staff, and anyone that's in our school buildings. With that, my first initial assessment of the district was to meet with all the administrators, set up meetings with each. I visited all the schools, listened to all the administrators, what their concerns were, and what I was looking forward to do to find any way that I could help in making sure that the school were safe for everyone. So that's just a little bit of my background. I didn't want to talk too much of that. So I'm just going to go over a few of the things that I've done since I've been here. Teresa will say that it's a lot, but okay. One of the things that when I first started, I'm looking at all the concerns with the schools. As an example, Worship School had cameras, but the administrator was not able to see anything that was recorded in her building. And she says, I don't understand why I can't. And in cooperation with Mr. Rivers, that was done immediately. The principal and the administrators of the school have the ability to review their cameras for any problems, anything that happens at the schools. Many of the schools had issues, basic issues, which I expressed to all the administrators. The security of the building, a door, outside door that doesn't close properly. To me, I treat that as an emergency. It's in today's world, that is an emergency. There's process for work orders and all that, but all of the administrators have my contact, and I said, anything like that, call me directly, doesn't matter what time or time of day or whatever time it is, I will make sure that the problem is fixed as soon as possible. Most of the time it's done the first day. Once I started attending drills, fire drills, I had the pleasure to go to Stratford High, which was technically advanced technology. And I discovered issues that nobody had taken a look at. Panic buttons are at every school in case an incident happens. They press this button, the alarm company, Sonitrol, will notify the police department. And the first time that we did at Stratford High, it was a big concern for me. The time was an issue for me, how long it took. It bothered me so much that I was trying to figure out what happened that day, that for the first time, I think I did here a month or so, I called Dr. Sunday at 8 o'clock at night and I said, I have this issue, this is bothering me. And I put out an email to the administrators, and it was a matter of the alarm company, Sonitrol, the way they were contacting the police dispatch. They're out of state, so they can't dial 911. They're using a regular landline to call dispatch. Dispatch doesn't know that this is an alarm company coming from the schools. So in working with cooperation with the town, Mr. Ceccarelli Dispatch Center, we came up with an idea of a separate ringtone only dedicated to that number that the alarm company is calling from. So that's still in the works. Dispatchers were trained that the alarm company is calling from this specific number. So now that time that it takes to contact the police, if a panic button is pressed, it was greatly reduced from the first time that I went to my first fire drill. When I arrived, in cooperation with Richard Ruggiero, the schools had what is called blue lights outside the schools. This is to alert any first responders, any staff, that an incident is happening inside the school. And those lights had, they've been with the school system for a few years now, and they were being replaced. But also, the need for having lights, the same blue lights inside the schools, because there are areas of the schools that if an emergency happens and the administrators are trying to deliver a message to the entire school, they might not hear it. It might be in the cafeteria, the gymnasium. It could be in areas where the sound, they want to receive that message. So every school, we're in the process of installing 10 blue lights inside the schools in key areas. So in cooperation with Mr. Ruggiero and I, we've been walking the schools and giving our ideas where we're putting all these lights. So everyone would be alert and know if an incident is happening. Also, when I arrived, there was in place replacing cameras for Johnson Academy. Video cameras were placed there. We placed also some chapel that were needed, and we're working on getting more cameras to make sure that all the schools have the appropriate number of cameras, and we can move forward with that safety in mind to make sure that everything that happens at the school is recorded. Another issue that was happening at the schools, and with Dr. Sunday, one of his biggest concern is people that are not normally at the schools, that are coming to the school for whatever reason, as any service, any maintenance for the schools, we're not signing in. Could be from the town, could be public works, could be electrician, could be plumbers. They're coming into the schools, and they were also going to the area where they were working at the schools, and they were opening doors, leaving those doors propped open so they can have access back to the school. So that was delivered to the town. So I spoke with Mr. Ceccarelli. I said everyone that comes into the school, not only for the safety of the staff and the children, but also for the safety of that person that's in our building. If they're in the basement working on whatever whatever the issue is, and if they have a medical condition, nobody knows that they're there if they don't sign in. So the bottom line is that it is most important that we know, especially as our climate specialists and administrators, to know who is in our buildings at any time. Going back to the panic buttons, I made it a point that I attended all the fire drills and all the lockdown drills at all the schools. And I pulled every panic button, and at a couple schools while doing that, they just came off the wall. They had never been touched. The good news is that they all work. They all deliver the message to the alarm company, but again, with our cooperation with Mr. Ruggiero, anything that we find that needs immediate attention, it's taken care of the same day, at the latest the next day, if it's not something that we can fix immediately. I have attended the PMT training, one-day training, and I will be going to Middletown, Connecticut for the first week of January for a week training, so I can become a trainer and be able to train our climate specialists. And as I also attended a 2-day conference in WestCon and a seminar in Stanford, all having to do with school safety. We have, with the cooperation of the school nurse, most of the climate specialists were trained in Narcan. That was a couple of weeks ago, and most of them have been trained with PMT as recently as 2 weeks ago. Since I came on board, I hired a total of 11 climate specialists. Every elementary, middle school, as of today, have 1 climate specialist. The high schools, and I need another climate specialist for the middle schools. We're conducting interviews next week. There's 5 applicants, and every time we conduct these interviews, I have the cooperation of the building administrators, all the principals. So I've been more than happy to volunteer to help me with the interviews. So that's an ongoing process that I will want to hopefully have all the climate specialists by the end of this year. That's my goal. No,
I think that's the last slide.
that's it?
Yep.
That was exciting. Any questions?
Any questions? On board. Mrs. Swansea?
I won't raise this as a question, but as a gratitude. I guess it's nice to see all that was accomplished in the short time that you've been here, but also I think I'm going to leave tonight with a little bit extreme gratitude, not a little bit. The idea that doors are popped open. I mean, people watch the news; they know what happens in schools when things like that happen. So I appreciate the attention that you're bringing to keeping our kids safe. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to make a summarizing statement, but if you have a question.
Mrs. Bedell.
Just had a quick question. I echo Mrs. Wiltsey's sentiment, and thank you for a mom as well. You know, thank you for helping to make our kids safe and our staff. I just wanted to, I saw that you're attending some trainings, and you've attended quite a few already and are attending some more. That I think that's great. Are the same trainings, how are the trainings being offered to the staff and the teachers? You mentioned that, you know, the climate specialists are getting certain trainings and things like that. Or the town workers are getting told that they're not supposed to leave doors open. Are trainings being offered or memos being put out to support that? Or
So when I when I have anything to deliver to the town, any issues, my counterpart is Mr. Jacarelli, who's in charge of the town safety. And however he handles that part of the town, I just have to let him know, I don't have a say on how the town is passing that information to their employees.
How about the teachers and things like that? Are they being trained on these things, or notes going out to them, or?
All of the administrators were informed that, and the administrators, they know that that's not something that they want in their building. So yes,
Right.
administrators put out information to make sure that the teachers and anyone that's in the building, make sure the doors are not left open.
Great, thank you.
I would just also expand on that. There's a specific classification of people who will receive specific training, right? There are some things that are not the expected response from our teachers specifically. But one of the things that I think is important is, and I sent this communication out to our families, is that school safety in 2022 is everybody's responsibility. It's not just the climate specialists, it's not just teachers, it's not just administrators. This is really all of our responsibility. Prop doors, and the little things that we can do to improve the safety of our schools, it's critically important. And I'll say this, and I'm sure our teachers and certainly our administrators who are here, when I was a principal, if somebody asked me what keeps you up at night, it's school safety. And certainly over the last 15 to 20 years, there's been a proliferation of issues. And I think it's one of those things where as school communities, we always say, let's hope it's not our school. Now, inevitably, I'm not saying we're going to extinguish everything, but we want to reduce the probability that something happens. And the way we do that is putting things in place that position us to respond efficiently and effectively, and also improving our interactions and our behaviors that allow us to assure that to the extent possible, when our kids walk through those doors, when our faculty and staff walk through those doors, they feel like they're in the same place, right? And that's how we talk about culture. What you just saw in the two presentations is really a manifestation of a lot of my thinking about how to approach school safety. I was very deliberate this summer, sitting down with Lieutenant Eller in my office for about 3.5 hours. We were on the whiteboard and just mapped everything out. And the next piece of that work was, to bring Carlos Castro on board, and we spent a lot of time this summer just kind of conceptualizing a lot of these things. His task was not to put this in motion. So school safety is ongoing work, okay? And I think I shared this with the board in September. This work never ends, okay? It never ends. But I do feel that based on the things that you just saw with the first presentation, which is the adaptive side of school safety, and then this presentation, which is the technical side of school safety, Stratford Public Schools is in a better place today than we were certainly last year and maybe over the last 5 years. So kudos.
Yeah, just one more piece of information that I think is important. I've heard you mention, I've been a town resident since the year 2000. Not only did I work for the police department, but I lived in town. My two youngest children went their entire elementary, middle, and high school in Stratford. They successfully, my daughter graduated UConn Stanford, and my son is completing his last semester at West High. So it's important that administrators, there's another piece of information I forgot to mention, was that administrators told me for any emergencies since I've been here, and there have been quite a few, the cooperation that I received from the police department, I don't have to wonder who I need to call. I don't have to wonder who could help me at the police department. I just call, I know who to call, and I have them there immediately. So it's good. I see that as I travel to all the schools, I know where I am in town, I know all the schools. So to me, it's been an easy to adapt to this job because of my background with the town. And that's all that I wanted to do.
And we super appreciate that.
To answer your question specifically about the training, we now have 16, we're trying to build capacity within our district. So to support Mr. Castro, we have 16 people that are now trained to be mindset trainers. So every building has one. So when we do get pockets of time where we can train staff and teachers, we have the trainers now in district. And then by the end of January, Mr. Castro will be a PMT trainer for us. We already have one. And so we will have gone up to 3 PMT trainers within our district because we have 2 new people going in to become trained there. So once we build our capacity, it's easier for us to turnkey in the moments that we have available.
Thank you.
And Heather, Ms. Keeley.
So nice to meet you. I also want to, echo the sentiment here and commend you on what you've accomplished so far in the short time that you've been here. In the presentation, and I will make sure I email my questions because I do have a lot of questions. But I'll touch on, if you don't mind, just a couple that was already kind of touched on here. In the presentation, I believe you have a bullet saying you've met with staff and briefed them on our district safety plan and protocol. So as board members, we also need to know that. We're also supposed to be approving those plans that get sent to the state. I've never seen one, so I'm hoping with you on board that we will make this part of our process. What is your timeline for board members to get that same sort of briefing on our district safety protocol and plan?
As soon as I have it, I will have that available for the next meeting whenever.
Right, I'll work with Mr. Castro. All that work we have proxy through my office to the board.
And then, Dr. Sunday, you brought up a point that I had here as a note too, that safety is everyone's concern, right? Responsibility. You mentioned that there are certain things that are not necessarily to fall on the teachers, et cetera, but I would like for us to understand, how are we empowering everyone? Because it is everybody's responsibility. How are we empowering everyone to be able to say when they see something suspicious or whatever, right? Like, everybody needs to, even if it's not their job, if it's a safety concern, they should be able to voice it, bring it to somebody's attention. Like, what are we doing to make sure that is communicated and implemented?
I believe that even prior to my hiring here and speaking with all the administrators, they communicate with their teachers, and everyone is aware of what's happening in today's world when it comes to school safety, and they have an understanding of the responsibility. When I go to schools, I get stopped, question, who am I? And I see your ID. I purposely try to walk into chapel as they were releasing the kids. I just happened to go there, and I know you're supposed to go into the main door and sign in and check in, and I purposely try to walk through a door where children were being let out to go on the bus, and that teacher stopped me and says, I'm sorry, you can't come into this door, you have to go into the main office and check in that area. So, and I spoke to the principal, I said, I don't know who that is at that door, but they're doing an excellent job. So all this safety and communication as far as trying to keep the school secure and having one way into the school, not just anybody walking in from any floor just because the door is open. It could be arrival time, it could be dismissal time. I believe that the administrators have done a great job with that prior to.
My last one.
But I can also second, I can maybe expand on that from my end. So I think one of the most, when we talk about shifting to a climate and a culture of safety, I think we cannot over communicate enough. So it starts from the top, not just from my office and the way I communicate with our families, whether it's through written correspondence or actually speaking to people. But I'm also saying some of that responsibility sits on the shoulders of district leaders, i.e. the Board of Education. with all the roots and connections that each of you have in different segments of our community, speaking about safety becoming a priority is a critical aspect of the work. I've said this overwhelmingly, even before we presented our achievement data in September. We cannot engage in any improvement efforts until we've taken the inflammation out of the space. If kids do not walk in to school every day feeling psychologically, physically, and emotionally safe, then for the 6 hours and 45 minutes that we have them, they will not be engaged, and even your most capable student will struggle. So the first thing is communication. But beyond that, there are other adaptive processes that schools put in place, whether it's through morning announcements, okay, or town or classroom charters, right, through Ruler or what have you. They talk about different attributes. So Worcester has the PRIDE acronym, right, and different schools have a different acronym, and part of that piece is safety. How that plays out and how we interact with each other is critical, right? And the thing about culture change and climate change is that things have to be done until they become habit, right? And it does take time, so I think logically we have to be patient with students, we have to be patient with our staff, we have to be patient with our family. A year and a half or 2 years from now, when we look back on things, if we do things with a repetitive fashion, we're committed to it, right? And we teach our children how to recognize things that might be out of place because this now becomes our culture. Ultimately, 2 years from now, we can say that we've improved the climate and culture because we all know how to be responsive to things that seem out of place that might present to be a threat. In the other space that we can engage in this work, about how do we position people to speak about things that they may see that might be out of place, in a protected sense. We just implemented, Matt Rivers did an exceptional work. I think you all saw in the CT post, there was an article about the implementation of Stop It, which becomes another instrument that people can use if they feel like there isn't somebody to go to, right? And there's a host of things that students and families can use that app for. I kind of joked, partially humorous about it. Yeah, some people might say that, the sandwich in the cafeteria is not that good. But ultimately, it's how do kids respond if they feel they can't go to a teacher, they can't go to a counselor, they can't go to an administrator? How can they still get that information out there in a way that it touches the desk of the administrators so we're positioned to respond, whether it's something with another peer or whether it's something that has to do with a stranger? We have a bunch of our children who are walkers, right? Who are walkers, and some things may not happen on school campus grounds. And the people that kids might have the best position to speak to about something might be on campus. So we have to find contemporary digital solutions that position our kids to be able to notify us about things that we may need to take action on. But inherently, if we are to transform our schools, our district to be safer than it was the day before, then everybody has to have a say in that work.
I'll send them an email. Just,
Gonna end on that.
I'll end on that, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Kiwi. Any other questions? Mr. Henry?
So last year, in large part or partly because of TikTok challenge, vandalism was, for a time frame fairly rampant in our schools. Have you taken a look at that? And
Yeah, there hasn't been that many incidents this year at all. I was told. I was aware, I was informed of many of the incidents that happened last year and what the district did about it. This year hasn't been, there's been a few minor incidents, but nothing major at all.
so have you looked at any proactive measures in case
Get rid of TikTok.
I'm going for it. But it's not going away.
Yeah.
They said there's on Facebook, they said there's on cell
Yeah,
phones.
well, I believe that with the addition of cameras and many of the issues last year were resolved through the cameras, the administrators, and Mr. Ruggiero sitting and having a timeline of when the incident happened, who went into the bathroom, which was mainly where the incidents were happening. They were able to figure out that, so with improving the camera systems in all the schools, which is our goal to not only put cameras where they're needed, but to change the camera systems to better systems as we go along at all the schools. That's one of the things that would help us trying to determine what that happened.
We also added climate specialists who now have positional proximity it serves. You know, if you talk to Chief McNeil, you talk to Curtis Eller, they talk about that omnipresence. So in many ways, just having a cruiser in front of a campus can deter somebody who might have maladaptive thoughts about, you know, action. It serves a similar function. Just having a physical presence around any of those communal spaces can make a child think twice about engaging in a poor decision around some kind of TikTok challenge.
And are you, I know Ms. Borges had talked somewhat about discipline. Are you involved in creating any of the disciplinary policies around some of these issues that you feel might be appropriate to?
No, I'm not involved with any of this.
And then I guess I don't know if now's the time with residency. I know it's further down the report.
I would say, yeah, if that is your will later on down the line. I mean, or
I'm going to report on that.
okay, yeah, we'll have a report.
Just didn't want Mr. Soto to have to stay out beyond his hours.
I told you the man doesn't sleep. That's not happening.
That was in the article about you. Would you wake up in the middle of the night with like light bulbs going off? I appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
Okay.
Did you have a question, Ms. Bell? No. Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I very much appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our public forum session. I believe we still have no public speakers today. Moving on to the administrative executive report, Dr. Sunday.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few items. I'm not going to look to be repetitive because some of the kids reported on some of the things that I think were worth speaking to and celebrating. I just do want to take a moment to congratulate this Board of Education on their CAPE recognition. Okay, can everybody put their hands together? I will have to consult with the board clerk, but I believe this is the first time in quite some time that the Stratford Board of Education has received this recognition. And many people do not understand the level of commitment that each member of this board brings to this work on a weekly basis. And I think, over the last year and a half, I think there might be a perception of some of the things and dynamics of the board, but I've also had the fortunate privilege as the superintendent of schools to sit back here and watch this group evolve over the last year and a half, and certainly over the last year. There's a lot more work to do, there's no doubt about that, but what is clear to me is that even if it emerges in different ways, everybody who sits behind this bench is passionate about the community of Stratford, is passionate about Stratford students, and is passionate about the staff. So again, on behalf of the Stratford Public Schools, on behalf of our families, our students, thank you all for everything you do. And I believe this recognition is well deserved. Excuse me. Please again, round of applause for that. Next, I just want to do a quick recap. Again, we were able to recognize 4 outstanding educators earlier today. Earlier in the month, I had the fortunate privilege to spend time with Jim Miller in Hartford for the Teacher of the Year recognition event, and Jim obviously represented us here. I think Jim is a beacon and is the best representative of what we have here. I had a chance to sit next to him for about an hour and a half and get a chance to know him. And this man has really, listen, I had no way to one up his stories. It was impressive. And again, for 2 years in a row, we were blessed that for us as a community, as a district, our names, Jim's name was called by our own Kristen Record. So round of applause for Kristen. Just want to take a moment to make a plug and give a shout out to the Wilcoxon Fathers Club. Earlier this month, they donated about approximately $4,500 to Wilcoxon School for a variety of different grant-funded programs. That's incredible. They've been a staple of that school. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you to Bobby Stanford and the rest of the gentlemen in that club. I do have to apologize because I did not get a chance to join the Board of Education in the first half of the day at the Mystic Marriott for the CAPS convention. I was at Bunnell, and since I arrived, I heard an incredible amount about the Veterans Day event that Bunnell annually hosts, which was put on pause through the pandemic, and I'll tell you this, I logged a lot of miles across the state that day, but it was absolutely worth it. I was at Bunnell High School, and Brian Newmeyer and his kids put on a culinary display that was just, when I say amazing, I'm still trying to get a recipe for that cinnamon butter. And Dr. Graff had no idea what was in it, right? It was delicious. It was like Texas Roadhouse delicious. But it was impressive, you know, as we had a chance to sit in that Aux gym, it was impressive to see so many of Stratford's veterans in that space, you know, and in my work, you know, I travel across town visiting different schools, and I see the banners on Main Street, and I made a reference to one of our administrators sending me a picture of one of our students standing under a banner of Dan Connor. You know, our kids pay attention to this, and on that day, there was just a remarkable display through the auditorium, into the gym, and we had a series of outstanding speakers, you know, but the one that really stood out to me was Coach Mastrioni's speech. And he spoke about the importance of preserving the stories of Stratford veterans, you know, and I think that, to me, that was a moving message that everybody in that audience needs to truly understand. And he spoke about the respect for veterans, for the bravery and the sacrifice. To me, it was just transformative. And I know behind this bench, we spoke about Veterans Day, you know, in the past, and when I see schools that leverage that day in a way that approximately 80 of Stratford's vets come and they sit representing almost every division of service, that's exactly what community is about. Okay, that's exactly what community is about. So again, kudos to VHS, kudos to the Stratford community at large. Just want to make a quick plug. I will be hosting a town hall meeting. This is not emotionally charged town hall meeting. This is part of our work around our commitment and our board priority to engage our community in conversation. I am going to use this opportunity along with, and I would again encourage the Board of Education to attend. I'm going to use this opportunity to get some feedback in the first half of the year from our stakeholders, our families, and our staff. I'm also going to use this opportunity to maybe create some context to get some input on budget season, so we actually have stakeholder voice in this process, okay? As you know, I pay detailed attention to the conversation that our families and our staff have, and I use that to inform my decisions. So again, it's open to our families and our staff. It will be at Worcester on December 8th at my dates are always wrong, because I know the board has corrected me here before, but I'm looking at my team back there. December 8th at 6:30, right? You said on 6:30, and that information will come out and get communicated. It's semi-structured, because I do want to get the input on budget and a few other items, but it's going to be very similar to what we've done in the past, where it's open. It'll be Q&A, but it's not just Q&A that I will be responding to. We'll have the district executives there to respond to whether it's facilities or whether it's academics or whether it's operations, whether it's food services. I would also extend an invitation to board members. I think you all have a powerful voice in this community. But it's just all of us getting together in the same space and just having a conversation. That's great.
Just a quick question about that date. Didn't one of the students say that there was something going on play or something?
It's the Bunnell Christmas Carol, which will be, I believe, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, if I am correct on that, Dr. Graff. So, but it is.
Yes, I know there's something going on every night in
No,
some of the schools, but
good.
I just want to give you a heads
I
up.
was right when I said the 6th.
Is it the 6th?
No, it's the 8th. You know, internally, we were looking at the 6th and the 8th. So we'll send more information. I have to figure out the timing. If it means we have to move.
I know there's something going on every night of the
What we
week
can do
for
is
something.
encourage everybody at that town hall to then go the next day and attend Christmas Carol at Bunnell.
There you go.
And we'll be together for
We'll iron out the details, and we'll try to figure out what the schedule conflicts are, but we'll make sure we create time and space for our families to get together. Okay? So, again, to close, budget season is underway. It's been underway for us internally all year, but over the next couple of weeks, I'll have the chance to meet with myself and Pam and Jamie, to meet with each department in our academic institution, and certainly each school, to review their budgets, right? The budget requests and the ideas. I've already myself and Pam communicated with our school leaders to have some level of forward thinking that the request should support their improvement targets and goals for next year, even though it's so early. But we're building the budget for next year, so to the extent possible, if you can forecast what some of your needs would be, those are some of the parameters we've given to our leaders. So we'll have those conversations over the next couple of weeks, and out of those conversations, I'll work with district executives to synthesize what will ultimately become the superintendent's proposed budget to the Board of Education. So, you know, get your energies together, because the next 4.5 to 5 months will be will require a lot of commitment and a lot of time and a lot of detailed analysis. I do anticipate that we will have a different year around this process than we did in the past. And we need to make sure that we are truly one community around this, and I think it's that's going to require you know, the town understanding the needs of the board, and our board understanding the needs of the town, and trying to find some common ground. But ultimately, we need to continue to do this work for the betterment of the community of Stratford. And that's it for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, sir. I will entertain questions for Dr. Sunday if there are any. Yes, ma'am.
Just a couple of questions. The first thing is as part of Ms. Mangini's report and part of the report you just gave, the schools are putting together wish lists or whatever it is. Can we have those as part of the budget proposal to see what the needs and wants are of the individual schools?
I would say no at this time. I think, you know, the general process is that it'll be the administration's work to work with each site to synthesize a budget. And as we go through our budget workshops, we'll walk the board through every segment of what we're doing, coupled with justifications for why we're making a specific request. We do not, I actually don't know of any district who engages in the practice of distributing each site budget request. Ultimately, this becomes a conversation that takes multiple weeks, multiple long days and hours with myself and my team to synthesize something that we bring forward to the Board of Education.
Do you mind if she has a follow-up?
Go ahead.
It's a follow-up to yours, which may be what you're also looking for. So after that information or the wish list is synthesized, I've already asked for Pam to consider a budget process that other districts are engaging in, where each school's budget rolls up into our budget. So we would be able to see what elementary school needed this amount of money for this amount of things.
Yep.
And then just like any Excel, it would roll up into our collective budget, but it would be after the discussions at the administration.
I totally appreciate that, because I think that would be very helpful as well. The only reason I'm asking for the wish list is because when we're sitting and making decisions about, you know, what needs to happen or what ultimately needs to be added or cut or, you know, things like that, we can see what the thinking is behind. If you don't want to give individual schools, that's fine. Just a list of the things that the schools are looking for. I don't need to know that Worcester is looking for a new teacher, or, you know, I don't need to know that, but a kind of a list of, you know, we're looking for these new teachers, but that may not be possible under what you're thinking. And that I totally respect as well, but to know what they're requesting would be helpful in our decision making.
Yeah, no, I think ultimately we do that, because we go through a justification process. So if I say that, you know, based on the synthesized work, that our budget proposal this year is requesting 6 extra FTE at the teacher position, right? We'll tell you exactly where we need those things. So in a similar way, you know, Heather might say that we don't have enough people to cover X amount of hours in Stratford High, so we need a special education teacher at Stratford High. So we'll go through that process in that workshop process. But what I took away from your request is that you actually wanted the actual PDF with Excel sheets around X, Y, and Z. And I think that's just, to me, that might start to slip into the weeds. There's a part of this process that the board has to trust that we do the work and spend the time with our leaders to really hear their requests and then bring those things forward to the extent that we think is reasonable, right? So one of the guidance that, you know, most of my administrators will tell you is that they ask for everything, right, which is fine, but I can't come to the board
Of course
with
not.
everything, right?
Of course not.
have to come to the board with things that are reasonable, and this also requires a cost analysis of historical appropriations, analyzing things against, our board or district priorities, i.e. the SOP, and making sure that there are certain things that make sense that can move the needle for us against our goals and objectives. So it takes a lot of work, and this is, for the next 6 months, this is my life, this is Pam's life, and I think there should be some level of confidence, and particularly after we've gone through that process last year. I think last year I spent a lot of time listening and not really adapting the process of the budgeting process because I needed to learn it. I think, having gone through that experience last year, I'm now in a different position to say, okay, these are some of the strategic moves that we need to make from a resource allocation standpoint that will support some of the objectives against our strategy and SOP.
What else? You said you had a few things.
No, I'm reserved, but I'll reserve better.
Sorry.
I
Anybody
can
else?
email him.
Anybody else? Dr. Sunday going? Thank you, Dr. Sunday. And seeing as Ms. Mangini is unfortunately not here this evening, and we just had finance, we will forego the Chief Operating Officer's report, and we'll move on to Dr. Davis' teaching planning report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and congratulations to the board on your CABE recognition. On November 8th, workshops were held in the district for school readiness staff, certified staff, pre-K-12, administrators, CIAs, secretaries, and climate specialists. Several of our staff also attended some workshops outside of district. During the course of the day, over 50 professional learning sessions were held in district, and for the most part, morning sessions were planned by district coordinators and afternoon sessions were planned by building staff. A survey for feedback on the day's professional development was sent out, and participants were asked to rate the impact that the session would have on their work in supporting students. On a scale of 1 to 3, with 3 being high impact, approximately 95% in the morning, of the morning session respondents rated the workshop session to a 2 or a 3, indicating they found the session they attended to be useful in the work they do with students. We had the same figure for the afternoon as well. 87% of the respondents reported that they agreed or strongly agreed that the content was helpful for their responsibilities, whereas 80% in the afternoon also responded as well. Recommendations for future professional learning were also obtained and will be forwarded to the Professional Development and Evaluation Committee, PDEC, and building and district personnel for planning purposes. In addition to our monthly PLC collaboration time, on March 28th, there will be an early release day for professional development planned by the buildings and supported by the district staff. So more to come. Also, I'd like to put in a plug for Parent C, which stands for Parents Supporting Educational Excellence. Parent C is a 13-session parent training program focused on parent leadership and education. It's free. It was created by the Partners for Educational Leadership and the Connecticut Commission on Children to provide parents, grandparents, and guardians with the skills, tools, and understandings they need to become leaders, change agents, and active participants in education. Parent C facilitates partnerships with district and school personnel to address inequities, improve schools and community engagement, and to increase student achievement. This is the 10th year that the program has been in place. Some of the roles that Parent C graduates have pursued are youth sports coach, Girl Scout leader, strategic planning committee member, school readiness council, board plan and planning subcommittee, Stratford Democratic Town Committee, Sterling House Youth Development Committee, PTA board members, elected board member, Teacher of the Year Selection Committee, and CARE Board of Directors. The newest cohort begins on February 4th. The new members are currently being recruited. So interested parents may contact Sarah North, the Parent C coordinator, and there's a link on our district webpage under Family Resources where you can get more information. So we really are encouraging those in the community that have not participated to please consider this wonderful opportunity. We are announcing the kindergarten information session will be held on Wednesday, January 25th, an in-person meeting at Victoria Soto School. In addition to an overview of the registration process, parents will hear about the kindergarten program, the dual language program, and other services and opportunities for families. And lastly, I just wanted to point out a few of our developmental assets, okay? Positive family communication is the November asset, and we encourage caretakers to be available to listen. A suggested opportunity to do so would be eating meals together whenever possible. I know that's sometimes a little tight. December is high expectations. What do you expect of yourself? We asked a student, what do you expect of yourself, and how can we support you in reaching your goals? And in July, adults as role models, model respect for others, hard work, and a good attitude for our children, model responsible behavior, and volunteer as a mentor. So I saw those 3 months, the assets sort of connected. We're, creating a situation for family communication as well as always school communication, but high expectations and engaging students in conversations about what their goals are and how we can help them. And then as role models for them, share our stories and how we can engage ourselves in the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Zepeda. And I'll take this opportunity to piggyback on your report about Parent C because 3 board members, myself included, are graduates of Parent C, Ms. Cupie and Ms. Goodell. And it's an amazing program, and also there's free childcare and free dinner. So if that doesn't sell you,
and really good chocolate cake.
But it's a really wonderful program, so I encourage anybody who has any interest to reach out to Sarah North for more information. It's amazing. Any questions for Dr. David? Yes, sir, Mr. Henner.
So attendance, part of your report has been, we've talked before about attendance. We've got, I'd be curious if we could provide the numbers coming up for the month of December and then the week after, the first week in January, just to see what kind of drop off or hopefully a continuation of attendance with there, but especially just focused on that week of January 2nd to the 6th.
Okay.
I do know like Stratford has, my daughter used to do it back in the day, but Stratford's sending 5 cheer squads down to Florida through Pop Warner, and what we're doing to make sure that, I think it's a terrible idea, but I understand this, whatever, but what we're doing as a district to ensure that those kids, when they go to, they've got that whole week of cheer squad and Pop Warner as well when they go down there, and then we've got the whole week or week and a half of Christmas, and then we've got the first week of January, which is at best a 3-day weekend. What we're doing to ensure that when those kids take those kind of breaks, because of sporting events or whatever they may be, that they're prompted to focus a little time on schoolwork as well. So, I don't know if it's something you address already.
No, but it's a great idea to plan ahead, and make sure that we have that information. Yeah.
Okay, and then just one other question. I know the League of Women Voters for years had done the spelling bee and had approached you on that, and were told that they wouldn't be able to do that anymore. Just curious what the thinking
Well,
is.
there was some discussion about whether or not that was something that we wanted to continue with them. We also discussed with them the possibility of maybe another type of activity that we could partner with them on, and there's still some discussion back and forth about that. We were looking at something along the lines of STEM, something that might include, more students in the activity. It wasn't that we didn't want to do the spelling piece, but we really wanted to see if we could open up an opportunity for more students to be part of something. So my understanding is that we're still in conversation with them.
Okay.
So it's not been, the whole thing hasn't been mixed yet.
Okay. And the spelling bee, I think if I remember correctly, it starts with the entire class and whittles its way down to the top contestants. My daughter actually misspelled the word jump when
And they're probably stuck with her, Mike. I don't know. I feel like the spelling bee is a traumatic experience personally, but
she was the only one, she was the first one to go, and she jumped up over exuberant and just blurted it out. But she did much better than that.
No, we certainly want to provide kids with opportunities to do things. We're just trying to think of something that also would maybe engage kids who's maybe that area might not be a strength of theirs.
Yeah, but it is an academic competition in a sense, and we are hopefully trying to make that our main point. Thank you. That is-
Thank you. Anything else for Dr. Gata? Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure if this should be directed towards you, Dr. Gata, or maybe somebody else in the room has an answer. There were a couple of surveys that were sent out for parents last year, the Panorama surveys. Have we seen full results of those yet?
I think so. Those climate surveys that individual schools send out?
Yeah, the schools have, yes, the school have,
I don't remember seeing the results.
no, we
I'm not
did
certain
not
the
present
board-
the results here.
No,
Okay.
we have not done a presentation. I'm actually not sure if it's touched. If the board has an interest in that, we can actually get that information.
I would appreciate that, thank you.
Great. Anything else for Dr. Gata? Thank you, Dr. Gata.
Thank you.
Moving on to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our regular meeting on October 24th, 2022, from our special meeting on November 3rd, 2022, and also the personnel document for this month.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Wilkie, second by Ms. Bedell. Any discussion?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
If we're grouping them, just for clarification, maybe you can clarify, but like if you have family members or spouse who work, should you vote on the personnel document at all? Like, aren't we supposed to recuse ourselves? I'm just curious what the process is.
I think best practice
Mhm.
is to abstain, I suppose, but I don't know if it's not in our bylaws or anything of that effect. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote. Ms. Cupie?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltie?
Yes.
Ms. Kralfabian?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrick?
Yes.
And chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. Moving on to items for action and discussion, we have two proposed budget transfers that were favored to the board's favorable recommendation from the Finance Committee. We'll take them one by one. I will entertain a motion to approve budget transfer number 1, which is to adjust accounts in Object 111 for various reasons. The total budget transfer amount is $100,913.45.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Kralfabian, second by Mrs. Wiltie. Any discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote. Mr. Hendrick?
Yes.
Mrs. Bedell?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Kralfabian?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltie?
Yes.
Ms. Cubie?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, passes 7-0. Moving on to budget transfer number 2. This is a proposed transfer. I will entertain a motion to approve budget transfer number 2, which is a proposed transfer to clean up the year-end balances after a late entry from the town, resulting in a need for additional transfers. The total amount is $203,527.80.
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Kralfabian,
Second.
second by Mrs. Wiltie. Any discussion on this?
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, as I stated in the Finance Committee, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. There's a whole bunch of information that we need to make an intelligent decision on this, and I think we should wait to get that information before we go ahead.
Sir. Just to reiterate, for those who might be watching, who didn't watch our finance meeting, this is a bookkeeping piece to balance the books in terms of an additional amount of insurance funding, I suppose, that was needed from the town. If anybody would like to clarify that, because I certainly didn't put it in a good way.
Well, I think
Feel free.
the way that you read it is clear. Proposed transfer to clean up year-end balances after late entry from the town. So it's
Right.
nothing on the Board of Education side, and we did make note to request additional information moving forward.
Sure, you bet. And this is purely bookkeeping. It's not impacting this year's budget. It is pertaining to monies from last year. Yes, sir.
After we vote, I know we've requested additional information, but if we get the information after the vote, then it's kind of a little
Right.
too late to get the
But
information.
I think going
No, but we
forward,
need
I think that,
information for
yeah,
the
that,
upcoming
right,
budget
you bet.
process.
As this looks like it might be something that we will also be discussing for this year's budget and for future budgets. I think that information at that point would certainly be necessary and appreciated, but as this is just bookkeeping on money that technically isn't in our coffers anymore, it's just a journal entry. That's the situation. With that, any other discussion about this?
And again, You had said that the money's not in our coffers, so it's not our money to transfer.
I think it's simply for go ahead, Mrs. Wiltie.
We went over this in the finance committee meeting. It is for the journal entry, which is the accounting audited required side of bookkeeping. So the money is no longer ours, but in order for it to read the way it's supposed to read and where it went, the town has made this request.
And the headline being, this doesn't impact anything for this year's budget. It is, and when if and when we come to a point where it is something that is impacting current monies and future monies, then certainly I think we do need to see that information before making any further discussion. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call vote. Ms. Cupey?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltie?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
No.
Mrs. Goodell?
No.
Mr. Henrik?
No.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 4-3. Moving on to item number 2, the proposed agreement between the Stratford Board of Education and the Stratford Public Schools Custodian Association. You should have all received a summary of the changes that have been made to the contract. Thank you to Ms. Brown. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, no,
Calendar's number 3.
That's next time.
We're moving up, come on. For once, I'm actually
thought we were
I'm
below.
on task, don't
I thought we were below.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed agreement, and then we can have discussion if needed.
Motion approved.
Motion from Mr. Henrik,
Second.
second by Mrs. Wiltie. Any discussion? Does anybody have any questions? Or perhaps Ms. Brown can answer them if need be.
I guess
Yes, sir.
my assumption is that we anticipated some of these increases in our budget process. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, roll call vote. Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Ms. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mrs. Wiltie?
Yes.
Ms. Cupey?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. And now, moving on to number 3, I will entertain a motion to approve the tentative 23-24 school year calendar.
But
So, hold on, wait. So moved by Ms. Cupey, second by Mrs. Wiltie. Discussion, Mr. Henrik?
okay, I think I see it now. This is the.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You bet. And so I know, Dr. Zuni, you can go ahead, give your little.
Sure, this is a very standard calendar. It's inclusive of all the days, the federal holidays, and the school dates, the applicable school dates. I do have to perhaps maybe preface this by saying that I explored the idea this year of bringing forward to the board consideration of maybe starting our school year earlier, right? Which will position us to end the school year earlier, so it's a net zero on both ends. As I did that research, I felt I wanted to have more conversations with our union leaders, our administrators, and various other stakeholders before I brought it forward to the board. So you'll find that this schedule is pretty typical for what we've had in the past, but in the future, looking at future years, there's a probability I will bring something that looks a little bit different to the board for consideration and vote. It's a possibility.
But otherwise, this is essentially the same calendar from this year with just the dates shifted appropriately.
With a start date of August 31st and a tentative end date, barring inclement weather, of June 10th.
And again, it will be approved as tentative. Yes, sir.
Quick question. Three Kings Day, is that?
It is a Saturday this year.
So is it not
It
a
was-
celebrated holiday
Not,
the year before? No,
not the day before, no. I don't
Okay.
believe it's
Okay.
celebrated as such. But I suppose once it falls again on a weekday, then, as with the Jewish holidays also, depending on where they fall on the calendar. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Cupey.
Question, is there a reason we're calling this a tentative calendar? Or because I know we said tentative about graduation dates, not the entire
I like
calendar.
everything
So
with
I was just
tentative.
curious. I was just curious if,
I think, well, Dr. Sunday, can you speak to that?
I think we wanted to bring this forward to the board for discussion, review, and discussion. It's very typical. This is a very vanilla schedule. It's not different than what we've done in the past. I would encourage the board to take action unless you see something that stands out, but this is a standard Stratford school calendar with 182 school days.
Yes. Ms. Garfield?
Just a few questions. On November 23rd, oh wait, that's, never mind.
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, I'm like, yeah, it's a good thing, thank you. I was originally, I'm like, wait, we're getting Wednesday anthem. The only other thing I would note, is that most of the days off were highlighted in the red font, but the April break was not, so if we could just change that, so that stands out for people, so they understand when, especially if they're booking vacations early. And then the only other thing I know, I think we've mentioned this before, is just making sure those conferences and the TLT dates are added to that calendar early so parents are aware, even though we get the text, the phone call, the email, but on every device I own.
And I'm still surprised. I'll tell you, I got the one about tomorrow, and
I was
what?
I did the same thing.
But anyway, yes, to your point.
To only send it to
I'm not
one.
good.
It goes everywhere.
Those are
Those
easy
get added.
updates we can add those later.
Perfect.
Ms. Vidal?
No, that was it.
I'd also like, this is sort of neither here nor there, but I know that I've heard expressed that just our physical calendar is sort of difficult to access in terms of reading it and interpreting it, seeing what days are off, what days are half days. So perhaps going forward, we might be able to explore a different sort of format in some way
Sent
for
you
our
guys a
calendar.
couple ideas
Yeah,
that
you
I've
bet.
seen other
Yeah.
districts using, a more vertical look.
Yeah. So not having much to do with the actual
Yeah.
days, but just the way that information is, shared with folks.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sir.
Typically, we've had Good Friday off. Is that during the April break? I don't know.
Probably. Yeah.
It's
I'm
in
checking
March,
on
Mike,
that.
the 29th.
It's
March
March
29th.
March 29th.
Oh, okay.
Early Easter.
That's 2024.
Oh, man.
Oh, Good Friday.
But to that point, it's hard to read this calendar, so.
No, I just,
No, but to Mike's point, right, it usually falls like right within the
Yeah.
April break
Looking at
time.
the
It's early next year, yeah.
Need a key.
Perfect. Any other discussion or questions about this proposed calendar? Seeing none, I will entertain a roll call vote. Ms. Cupie? Yes. Mrs. Wiltie?
Yes.
Ms. Carol Fabian?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Ms. Vidal?
Yes.
Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Chair votes yes, motion passes 7-0. Moving on to tabled items, is there anything anybody would like to take off the table?
I think the residency report was there. I'd like to make a motion to take residency off the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Henrik?
I think Dr. Sunday was going to provide us with a report.
Sure. Last month, I think we shared that we disenrolled 4 and confirmed 7. This month, we disenrolled 5 and we've confirmed 1 who is a resident of our community. And we also had 1 senior request to remain. We do grant that for seniors who are in the last year in our district, which I have approved. So again, this month, we've disenrolled 5, confirmed 1 as a substantiated resident, and granted a senior request for 1 student.
And do you know the number of open cases are dissolved?
Well, they come in every day, and it's fluid. And as Mr. Castro, I don't know if he's still here, but as I shared with you all, he doesn't sleep.
Still here,
He's not
sleeping.
at our buildings, or he sleeps with his eyes open, I'm not sure what it is. But they come in fluid. I don't have those numbers right here, but I can get that to the board.
Okay.
Thank you.
And again, I know it changes, but just kind of a snapshot.
But I think, it's clear that we've been committed to this work, and we're making some headway.
And I do want to commend you. I mean, I think all the past board members, one of the biggest complaints was not from you, but from past administrations, a lack of effort in that part. And I want to commend you for taking the bull by the horns and handling it.
Great. Anything else on this?
Motion to return to the table.
Second, all in favor? Aye. It is back on the table. Moving on to committee assignments and reports. Ms. Carol Fabian, your committee did not meet this month.
Did not meet.
When will you be
Lack
meeting?
of quorum due to it falling on election day. So we are scheduled to meet on Tuesday, December 13th.
Excellent. Can't wait to hear from you next week. Ms. Wiltsey, we met in finance directly before this meeting. Do you have a recap for us?
We sure did. We just spoke of the 2 budget transfers. We gave a little bit of insight as to what may come from the town. Dr. Sunday spoke very eloquently about his response in not allowing anything to affect this year's budget, and also shared that December 8th we will have a town hall meeting, which I really do hope there's a lot of attendance at, so people get a full picture of the work that's happening and can offer some of the input they want to have for our budget process. And our next meeting is the 19th of December at 6:30.
Wonderful. All right, super, thank you. School plant and planning, Ms. Cupie?
We did meet on the 3rd. The committee met and discussed kind of some studies around, sixth graders being middle schoolers versus elementary, and just kind of looking at that through the lens of some past studies that have been done across the district and how that information aligns. Do we want to share, we went through some questions that we might want to ask staff members at the elementary and middle school levels. We drafted that, so it hasn't been sent out yet. But again, it's just trying to get input to tie it to, that historic information that we have and try to make sense of it all together.
Sure. Yeah. Great. Mr. Henrik, anything to add?
Yeah, so did that survey go out?
No,
Teresa?
Not yet.
No.
The board chair was going to look at it.
Yes, I still have to do some review on it. But no, it has not gone out yet. I mean, I know there was some discussion about when it should go out. I mean, as just knowing how people are busy this time of year, I would personally suggest waiting until after the new year, just so that you get a better response. Because to me, it's not a rush. It's not an emergency situation. So I feel as if it could probably wait another couple of weeks until we're sending it out at a really ideal time to get the most response. Just
So
my
Is
we're going
that
to be
a-
meeting this week, right?
Yeah.
We're going to be meeting this week. I would have liked to know that it's with you waiting.
That's not bad.
So
Sorry.
just making sure that that's communicated with us, because we're going to need to update
Yeah,
when we
you
meet
bet.
as a group.
You bet.
And
I would also just caution that we are very clear before this goes out, because I know how information can be disseminated amongst everybody, that we're very, very clear that this is not something that is happening in the immediate future, that it's exploratory. And so I definitely want to be able to, have that information available. Simply so that we don't, start an uproar in the community,
So-
that we are immediately going to be moving to this new format.
Those are all discussions that we had on the committee level.
Sure,
My
yeah.
understanding that it was a committee decision. And I don't know whether the chairmanship, maybe I'm misunderstanding the roles, but don't know where the Board of Ed chair comes into play in that. But we did have a lot of discussion around the timing, the motivation for, why we did it, when we did it, and why we wanted to go out when we wanted it to go out. And we did set an aggressive schedule to move it forward based on a number of different reasons. But those were all things that took place on the committee level, and now, we're getting put back. So it's kind of like our efforts are being thwarted. And there was no discussion with the committee as to changes in the process or overstepping or overruling on our authorities or our duties. So it's kind of frustrating to hear now that after all the hard work we put into the committee and the questionnaire and the reasoning, and we had 8 members on the committee who were all very actively involved and very energetic and willing, but when we go back to them and say, the board, it's going to take away their desire to waste their time or put their input into it in future endeavors. So, having our roles more well-defined and not overstepping them, I think, is an important ground to giving authority to to our boards and committees, you know, I mean, I'm sure you don't go into the policy committee and tell them they can't talk about certain
The
policies.
policy
and everything.
committee isn't sending out a district-wide survey. No other committee that I'm aware of thus far, at least in my time on the board, has sent out a district-wide survey. And so I think with that in mind, it required or just happened to have a little bit more oversight. It's not stepping on anybody's toes, at least on my end. It's saying we're not in a hurry to do this.
Well, we are, our committee is.
But why?
And we set a time frame because we
Because
said.
that concerns me because we go back to the demagnetization, and that to me was a hurried thing, and it happened. It was boom, and we were-
It's a process we set to gather information and to do it in a timely fashion, and we laid out a calendar and a time frame to do that. And it was a well thought out discussion as to how we would gather the information. So if we decided to go in that direction, we could do it in a timely fashion. So it just didn't get kicked down the road. So those board members who are here now could have a part in it, in the discussion and the thought process, so we could get certain things done by the school year. But we laid it in, I think if there had been some communication back to the committee, it might have been a little more palatable than the way we're finding out.
I'm going to be really frank in that the discussion that there's a rush, that it's a pressing matter concerns me a bit. Just going back in history on how we have rushed some large movements through.
It's not a rush. It's a rush to gather information so we can make an intelligent decision. And if we decide to move in that manner, that we have the information and that we can do it. But our rush is to take advantage of the board members that are here and the committee members that are here to take advantage of their expertise and their ambition to at least gather the information so that we can then bring it back to the board, so the board can at that time make an intelligent decision on whether, but we're in the information gathering process. And what we're doing is slowing down the gathering of information. We're not making any decisions on direction. We're gathering information. It was very clear at the heading of the questionnaire that we are just gathering information, and we're trying to get the input of the staff who it impacts directly, because if they don't feel it's a good idea, then we probably stop. But we are one of the few districts in the state of Connecticut that still does the K-6 model. And it's been shown that it's not effective. But what we're looking to do is gather information, and that is it.
So let me just clarify, being co-chair, that you and I didn't discuss about delaying or anything, because I didn't even know it was with you.
Yes.
There's no rush on my end to collect that data. In fact, I was in favor of post-holiday. Yes, there were a couple members on the committee who were anxious, like, let's send it out now and get that intel, right? So we can start, like, processing that. But there's no rush to make any decision on this right now, because if that were to happen, like, let's say we, the information align and we want to go in that direction, that would be years. Like, there's no way that's going to be a this year thing. So if you have inside information that something is, please share with us.
Well, look, it was a vote that was taken by the board, a unanimous vote to go by the time frame we selected. And you and I talked about having it done before the holidays, the reasoning to do it before the holidays, and all those
No,
things.
I expressed why I was post-holiday. 2 people jumped and said, yes, move it. Regardless of the matter,
We took a vote.
I think the main issue here is we would have liked to know that it was being held up by somebody else who's not on the committee, right? By you. And now that we know that, it's kind of like, let's move forward and handle it.
Yep.
But just, and one other point, we have also had a full agenda every meeting and a lively discussion every meeting. And I'd remind the board that Ms. Coopey didn't feel that there was enough to do to have monthly meetings, and it was by a unanimous vote.
Oh, no. Don't put words in my mouth. Because I
You wanted to
said,
have,
I was on the committee before this new board. They met every other month. I said, why not start by keeping that cadence, right? If we find, and I said this, if we found that we needed to meet more frequently, I'm totally open to it. But I'm not going to right off the bat just say increase our meeting frequency just for the heck of it. Like, yeah, I enjoy meeting here, but I have other things.
You guys are doing great work. I
Like,
thank you for
hello.
your work. Ms. Cupid, I thank you for your work, and I look forward to hearing as how this project progresses. So thank you guys. Moving on to liaison, Mr. Hennick.
so our last meeting was a brief meeting. I have kept the town side informed of our discussions on planning. They do look forward to, and were encouraged by Dr. Sunday's comments at the last, not the previous, but the one before, surrounding the budget process, and we're all just hoping to get along.
That's right. Anything from our other two liaison members, Ms. Bedell, Ms. Carol Fabian?
Very quick meeting.
I'll take it. The best kind.
Yes, and we will not be meeting in December,
No.
as it falls on December 21st.
No, yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Policy review did not meet in November, but
We did not meet, but as many of you are aware from the conference that we went like a week and a half ago, there have been new guidelines released regarding remote learning and very nuanced. So we may want, we'll have to look at what policies we have right now with language around that and meet to clarify some of that because it's very tricky.
yeah, wonderful. Great, thank you. And athletic review. Oh, sorry.
Just wanted to jump in on the remote learning thing. Nothing will be going into effect until 24, 25.
Right,
So
yeah.
we're not looking to do this right, for next year or anything. So.
Excellent, great, thank you. And Mr. Kennedy, athletic review?
Yeah, we didn't meet, but we're going to be meeting the third week of January. We're going to meet quarterly.
Wonderful, great, thank you for all your work. Other committees, CAVE, Ms. QP, any recap for us?
Yes, so on the 17th, you weren't able to make it, the delegate assembly, but I did attend that, and the delegate assemblies where representatives from basically all districts come and meet and vote on the various resolutions that CAVE is going to advocate for. I would love to meet with certain people here, Dr. Sunday included, on things that are, maybe creating pressure for us or things that we feel like are hindering our ability to meet the needs of our students that we can then propose as future resolutions. So.
Awesome. Great, thank you, Ms. Cooper. I did attend the CES meeting virtually on November 3rd. They are doing much the same as us. They approved their calendar as well. I will also be attending the legislative breakfast this Friday. So if you guys have any pressing issues that you would like me to discuss with our area legislators, that is a hard word for me, please let me know. I'm excited to attend. Stratford High renovation building needs. Haven't we wrapped that up?
I didn't attend, but I did check the minutes and they're basically just doing like project closeout things and work orders and stuff, so not much going on there.
Wonderful, so exciting. Great, and that is it. So, I will entertain a motion to enter executive session with the 7 board members as well as Dr. Sunday in order to discuss the superintendent's goals.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Wiltsey, second by Ms. Carol Fabian, all in favor? Aye. I will entertain a motion to return from executive session at 10:26
So
p.m.
moved.
So moved by Ms. Bedell, second by Mrs. Wiltsey, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are back in open session. And seeing no further business, there were no votes taken during the executive session, by the way. Seeing no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn at 10:26.
Second.
So moved by Ms. Carol Fabian, second by Ms. Bedell, all in favor?
Aye.